Hey, everybody, welcome to our second NERSA NCAA football officiating learning community meeting of the season. Tonight, Seth Wasserman, who is a second year, correct, back judge in the PSAC?
Second year in the PSAC, yep, sixth year overall in college.
Awesome. Seth's going to give us a doodle presentation on health and wealth as an official. I'm sure there'll be plenty of opportunities for questions as we go along, but I am going to turn over to Seth. Seth, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick, and thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. I appreciate it. So tonight's presentation, as Nick mentioned, is called Health and Wealth as a college football official. I'm going to share my screen here, get going. Let's see. Everybody can see my screen okay, right?
Yep, all good.
Okay, cool. So, I will tell you, being a college football official for 6 years and a high school football official for going into my 12th year, I think there's a couple of things when it comes to officiating that, um, obviously we pick up as we learn and gain experiences, but really never get talked about. And, yes, health is a big component of that, and we're going to dive into that, and I have some resources that will share, but also the wealth part about it. And as I dive into it, there's like three aspects to each that we'll get into, but it's really high level overview conversation as you combine these two concepts that hopefully will provide one or two ideas or ways to handle these two concepts as being a college football official that will just help you along your journey to make things easier above and beyond the study groups, the rules exchanges, the quizzes, and the plays that you're watching on a regular basis. So with that, we'll get started. Our first concept is going to be health. And when it comes to your health, as you know, there's three main aspects. It's your mind, your body, and the spirit. And with your mind, just as an example, many of us can get headaches when we're stressed out. I know I do. It's just a perfect example of how your mind affects your body, right? And they go hand in hand. And then when it comes to your body, whether you're doing daily walks, long running, or strength training in the gym, that exercise and working on your physical fitness, your body, tends to reduce injuries and again kind of keeps that mind working in the correct way so that they are fluid together. And then finally, the spirit. And the spirit is not really like, oh, okay, spirit as you would think it of in a religious setting, but spirit is really like your emotions and how they affect your day-to-day activities and staying in control while keeping you in high spirits. A lot of people refer to this as like emotional intelligence. I know I do a lot of that. Just as a side note, I own my own business, so these three aspects play a big role in what I do on my day-to-day work, but it transpires easily over to college officiating. And so with that, let's dive into each one individually. So when it comes to your mind, this is crazy. I'm going to start with this statistics, and I guess I'll throw this out to the group as really a rhetorical question, but somebody asked me the other day if I considered myself to be an athlete as a college football official. And what's interesting is if you look at the definition of an athlete, it's really getting paid to play or compensated to play a sport. Well, I know we're not technically playing, but I definitely would consider us athletic as football officials, college football officials, even high school official. It is an athletic environment that we are in every time we step on that field. Here's just a quick statistics to kind of point out how important it is, and I want to go here first with like the amount that you sleep at night and how it could reduce your risks of getting injured as an athlete, right? So an athlete who sleeps less than 8 hours has a 1.7 times higher risk of experiencing an injury over a 21-month period. So if you're not averaging 8 hours of sleep, which is number 6 on the list for your mind, it's also actually on the list for your body as well. I'm telling you firsthand, you can definitely understand and experience that injuries may play a role. I mean, you get tired on the field. I don't know how many times. I drive down to my games on Friday nights, and sometimes it takes me 5.5, 6 hours to get there, right? And I have to wake up, get breakfast, and whatever the case may be. But I am always working at during the week making up for that sleep. So even at the game, I'm not worn out and risking myself of getting injury. But tips for improving your mental well-being. Well, number one, try to relax and reduce your stress. I can, obviously, the more stressed you are, the more difficult it is for your mind to stop wandering all over the place. So, just a resource that I like to use on a regular basis is an app. If you have an iPhone, I think it's on the Android, but I'm an iPhone user, so a lot of what I'll share is on the iPhone. I use an app called Calm, and it's just a phenomenal way to kind of unwind, listen to, birds chirping or whatever the case may be, or even going outside, like sitting in my rocking chair on the front porch and just relaxing for 10 minutes. That's enough. I mean, obviously, uh, well, you may or may not know, but obviously when we work, um, work can get in the way of reducing our stress. So if you just have a second to just unwind and walk away for a minute and breathe things out, you're going to be better off for it. Um, Obviously, as a football official, number two, we find ways to learn and be creative all the time. And I originally, when you first come in, you're like so green and so new, and you don't really know what's what, and you're just trying to make your way through the rule book and understanding this, that, and the other. One of the ways that I find myself being more creative is I have a study group that I started in Connecticut. I felt like it's important because the best way to learn is to teach. So the more you can teach, the better you'll be. And that's when I was like, you know what? I think it's important to share some of the knowledge and tips that I've picked up along the way tonight in this presentation as a way of being creative, right? Just outside the box thinking, like health and wealth, putting it together. So any chance you get an opportunity to learn and create that learning environment is going to help your mind get better. And I already talked about this, but spending time in nature. And I'm going to, be honest here. I am not an outdoorsy kind of guy. I really hate bugs, but at the same token, just getting outside and having a barbecue with your family in the backyard, that's enough for me to get out and be in that nature environment. As some of you probably know, I am a people person, so I love to connect with people. I love to introduce myself. I love to meet people and learn more about them. I think as a football official, you may not have the same crew week to week, but connecting with others is crucial in the line of work that we do. That trust factor, understanding each other, and not just as a college football official, but as a human being, I think will help you and your mind and your journey of being a football official. So, but keeping all of those four in mind, your mind plays a huge role in your physical health. I can tell you, there are days I'm a big workout guy. I work out every day, uh, probably too long, but 2 to 2.5 hours between, mobility and stretching and physical training. Um, but there are days when I'll walk in that gym and I'll be like, shit, I do not want to be here right now. I'm just not in that mindset. And you just power through it. You overcome it. You take those few minutes, maybe to do some stretching, mobility, to kind of get yourself acclimated to the environment, and then you power through it. So your mind is a very powerful tool when it comes to physical well-being. And number 6, we already covered this, improving your sleep. So one of the apps that I use every night to track my sleep pattern is called Sleep Cycle. So what you're seeing like with Calm in number 1 and number 6, Sleep Cycle, those are actually the pictures of the apps, what they look like. So if you download it, that's what you're looking for. Sleep Cycle and Calm are both free. I do not pay for either or. Sleep Cycle is great because it tracks your sleep patterns. It can tell me how long I've been sleeping, if I snored, if I was sleep talking. I don't do that, but if I did, then it would tell me. But it's just a really great way to keep track of, how your sleep may improve or unimprove over a period of time. I think there's a question in the chat. Let's see. Hey, buddy, previous slide, you misspelled the word spirit at the bottom of the slide. Fair enough. Thank you, Jim. Got that. I will fix that. Okay, cool. Number 4, let's move forward here. Next, your body. So obviously, as I mentioned, your mind plays a strong role in your body. And when you put the two together, they really go hand in hand, but taking care of your body is so important. There are 2 apps that I'll refer you to for eating a balanced diet. So, I'm pretty particular with what I eat. A lot of my crew can tell you I am very difficult when we go out for crew meals because I just am very picky with the food that I put in my body. But there are 2 apps that I use on a regular basis. One is Noom, which is a kind of diet type of program. And the other one is Bobby Approved. And if you are Instagram, there's this guy, his name is Bobby Parrish. Bobby Parrish is down in Florida. He's a nutritionist and he goes around sharing the ingredients and whether they're good for you or not. I mean, sometimes he goes a little overboard, but that Bobby Approved app is a scanning app that if you scan the barcode, he'll tell you whether it's Bobby approved or not. So when we go shopping, obviously, originally we would use that to find the foods that we like that are either good for us or not good for us. So it's a great little tool to use when you go shopping because I can tell you right now, Doritos are not going to be approved. So if you're a Dorito guy, I would just put those back on the shelf. And there are other options. But anyway, I know number 2 says stay well hydrated, 8 glasses of water daily. I would say that's a minimum, but the actual formula that you want to use for staying hydrated on a daily basis is you take your weight and you divide it by 2. That's how many ounces of water you should be drinking a day. So I'm about 176 pounds. I round up, so I should probably be drinking about 90 ounces of water just based off my body weight. However, if you drink coffee, if you drink 8 ounces of coffee, you need to replace those 8 ounces of coffee with 8 ounces of water. So from a hydration standpoint, when it comes to our season, don't hydrate the day before and expect not to have cramps on Saturday, especially the first week of the season, and you're on the turf and it's 105 degrees. That does not go well. You need to be hydrated days leading up to that game for you to get through the game without cramping and having any hydration issues. As I mentioned, I exercise regularly. I joined a gym that is more nationally and regionally located. So in case I'm traveling and I wanted to work out while I'm traveling, I have a gym at my disposal. So I'm a member of Anytime Fitness. Anytime Fitness is literally what it says. It's a gym that I can go in 24 hours a day if I wanted to. But it has many locations. And I do exercise at a minimum of 2 to 2.5 hours a day every morning. That's just what works for me because of my work schedule. I'm very flexible. But I would encourage you for any exercise, at least 30 minutes 3 times a week, even a brisk walk, doesn't matter. Get out. Don't just wait for 2 weeks before the season to start. Because again, I can promise you it's not going to bode well when you get on the field for week 1. We already talked about sleep. That obviously plays a role in your physical well-being. Number 5, I mean, I would limit the alcohol. I'm not a drinker at all, and I don't smoke. I've never been that big of a drinker. I don't smoke at all anyway, but the less you can drink, the better it is. And obviously, going back to the hydration, if you do drink alcohol, you need to replace that with water. So for every drink, there should be 8 ounces of water. Consult a doctor, but if you like to take multivitamins or any type of vitamins, I think they could play a big role. I'm located in the Northeast, and Connecticut can be really cold, dreary, and crappy outside during the winter. So supplementing like a vitamin D, vitamin C, or vitamin B vitamins during the winter and while working out tends to be really good for my body. So talk to your doctor. Everybody's different. I'm not going to tell you what vitamins to take, but There is a bunch of vitamin companies that I have done a ton of research for that I'm happy to share if you're interested. Reduce screen and sitting times. Okay. I stand in front of a computer 9 to 10 hours a day for my work. It kind of sucks, but I can tell you every time. So if you're curious, what I do, I own a insurance case design firm. So I'm busy staring at Excel spreadsheets and numbers and life insurance illustrations all day long. So what I tend to do during my day to break up that screen and sitting time is I'll work on a case and walk away and go sit down in the living room and just kind of unwind for a few minutes or think about other things, or break out my rule book and kind of go through a rule if I stumble on a quiz. But the screen times, golly, I should share this presentation with my kids. It's crucial to be aware of it. And I don't know how many of you are doing it, but one of the worst things you can do for your mental and your physical well-being is waking up first thing in the morning and laying in bed or right before you go to bed and going on your phone. That's like awful. There's a lot of studies out there that just show that it's really bad for you. Not telling you what to do. I'm just saying might be something that'll help your physical well-being. Okay, any questions on this slide?
No, I don't have a question, Seth, but I did want to say, everybody's approach, especially to like the workout stuff, is very different. I know myself well enough to know that like I can't go in without a plan, and I'm not really good at developing plans for myself. So I gravitated towards either getting a personal trainer or subscribing to, there's a personal trainer app called FitRef, for example, that gears up personalized workouts toward the sports you officiate. So there are options out there, maybe because I know that it's been so long since I played high school football that I don't really remember how to develop that kind of stuff for myself. So don't feel like you have to do that for yourself necessarily.
Yeah, Nick, great point. So actually on the screen, and I missed it, right next to number 4, under number 3, is the app that I like to use. I have 3 apps that I use and kind of rotate through. I like to have a 6 to 8 week cycle as I change things, because your body will plateau. But this app right here is called Center. It's by Chris Helmsworth. I really enjoy it. There's a ton of different programs in there. There's mobility, there's nutritional stuff, there's all kinds of different trainings from basic to intermediate to advanced trainings. I just find it to be extremely well done, and it just has a lot of options for every different level. There's a couple other resources that I'll share later, but this one right here under number 3 is called Center. I love it. It's a great app, and quite frankly, it's a lot less expensive than a personal trainer. My annual subscription, I think, is like $160 for the year. So, and there's tons of content on there. But anyway, good point, Nick. Which brings me to my first disclosure. I am not a personal trainer. This is not fitness advice or mental health advice. If you need advice, please work with a professional. I am neither of those. I'm just sharing a little bit of my personal tips to help you from a high level perspective. All right. Okay, cool. So let's go into the wealth aspect here. And again, there's a disclaimer. I was a financial advisor, no longer have the licenses to do so, but I work in that world. So I'm just going to share a very high level over the wealth aspect to college officiating and a couple of tips that I hope you can take back to help you out this season. So there are 3 aspects for the wealth portion of this presentation. Number 1 is expenses, which is basically like the travel costs and what does it take for you to do a game. As I mentioned earlier, I travel a lot in the car. So, and I'm staying in hotels, as most of you may do on Friday night. So hotel, gas, food, and sometimes I do fly out because I'll have games out in Pittsburgh. So those are expenses that come up, and I need to know how to deal with that. Number 2, obviously we all get paid a game fee, and at different levels and different conferences, you're going to get paid differently. Understanding what those games fees are for each of the games you're doing is crucial so that you know what your expenses that you have to plan. And then number 3, the tax planning. As officials, you probably already know we're a 1099 contractor. understanding those implications. And I would definitely encourage you to work with a CPA or tax preparer to help mitigate the tax implications that may play a role in being a 1099 contractor. And as I mentioned earlier, and I'll kind of dive into it a little bit further, I own my own business. So sorry, I didn't mean to click ahead. I own my own business, so I'm already a 1099. So adding football officiating, an additional 1099 income, is a lot of balancing. So I do have a CPA and a bookkeeper to help me with all that stuff. So, all right, getting into the expenses, just a few tips to help you keep track of what you got going out as you're working as a college official. So number one, you got to create a budget. And what's important when you create a budget, as I mentioned earlier, is understanding what you're getting paid. So with my supervisor, he has multiple different levels. He has D3, D2, and D1. And if I do any scrimmages, those are different fees for those scrimmages from D3, D2 to D1. So most of the time, 85%, I'm doing PSAC games, which is one fee, and sometimes I have to fill in at a D3 game, which is a whole nother game fee. So I have to plan and create a budget accordingly every week, depending on the game, whether I'm in a hotel, how much gas I'm going to need to put in my car, how much food and where I'm going to eat. And if I am going to have to take a flight to my game, which again is going to be more of the west of Pennsylvania, if I have any games near Pittsburgh or Erie or whatever the case is. It's crucial to keep your receipts. There are definitely apps out there that you can scan your receipts. So, there's Concur, there's one that's kind of a pricey one, but there are other budgetary apps that will let you keep track and take a picture of your receipt that automatically uploads the information. But also, besides that, I'm going to skip to number 4 is enroll in like frequent flyer or hotel programs, even rental car programs. And I know like Marriott has a VIP NCAA discount, but what's interesting is I find that the AAA discount is better than that. So, make sure that if you do have those programs, find as many discounts as possible. And one of the other apps that I'll share with you for expenses and helping with expenses, there's an app called Upside, Side, SIDE. And Upside is a like a partnership program where you can upload receipts and receive like rewards for doing so at some of their partners. So gas stations, restaurants, even some travel allows you to do that. So I always go to a gas station that gives me the ability to upload Upside because that gives me rewards. So it's another way to kind of, I guess, win at the end of the day. But going back to number 3, set up a way to track your expenses. So I have an Excel spreadsheet that I use. It's kind of rudimentary, but it just keeps track of week by week, expense by expense, so that I can get it to my CPA that coincides with my game fee. And at the end of the day, which I'll get into in the game fee side, is I'm really trying to offset everything. I do not want any extra expenses. I want to zero net my officiating currently. Obviously, depending on what level you are, that may be more difficult to do, but that's what my motivation is at this point. So even number 5, if you have a study group like Pure Officiating, for example, I pay to be on Pure Officiating. That's deductible. If you go to clinics, deductible. Buying officiating gear, all of that should be included in your expenses. All of that should be tracked, and you need to make sure you keep all of your receipts. Any questions? No? Cool. Okay, game fee. Again, know what each game fee is and have a system to check it off. So what I do is I actually print out my entire game schedule for the season, and I handwrite under each game the check number, the date I received it, and the date that I deposited it. Because most of the schools that we work for send us physical checks. We don't get direct deposits. Sometimes we do. And I don't think any of our schools use Arbiter Pay anymore. And I don't know how many are going to go on to RefQuest. Anyway, however, yeah, I literally print out my game schedule, check it off week by week, write down the check number, write down the day I receive it, write down the day that I deposit it in my account. I talked about it earlier, but I always try to plan ahead. So if I know I'm working a PSAT game and I'm getting paid X game fee, and I look at Google Maps or Waze and it's going to take me 4.5 hours to get there, I want to plan my hotel accordingly so it doesn't take me out of the way and add extra time and money. And I'm going to look for restaurants around there that are affordable that will stay within my game fee. But I always have a plan. So that way I know what I'm spending and what I'm coming in. So that way I don't go way over. It does happen. It's sometimes unavoidable. When we got on, I flew out. I had 2 games last year where I flew out to Pittsburgh. I had to fly out from Logan, which is Boston. So I had to plan a 2-hour drive to Boston and parking and my flight and my hotel. And then, the food expenses while I was there, it definitely added up. It was way over my game fee. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, I still netted out better than 0 for my season. Any questions with that? Okay, cool. Okay, taxes. So I think obviously everybody knows that as a college football official, we're a 1099 contractor. What does that mean? 1099 employee is just a contractor rather than a full-time employee. It can be referred to as a freelancer or self-employed. But ultimately, you need to understand the implications of what a 1099 means. It means you are fully responsible for the taxes on the payment. That school that pays you, they are paying you a gross amount, and you have got to pay taxes on that amount. So, personally, I said earlier, I work with a CPA. If you are or you know of a cousin who's a tax preparer or a CPA, that would be huge. Because as I mentioned, my motivation is to offset my game fees with all my expenses, so I net out 0 because I do not need to add any more income to my company. It's just not what I want to do. So another disclosure here, I'm not a tax professional. This is not tax advice or financial planning advice. If you need advice, work with a professional. Any questions?
Just an additional comment, and I totally agree with everything. And oh, by the way, I am not a tax professional either, but I stayed at the Holiday Express over the weekend. Take every deduction that you can. Okay. Do you have to have a iPad or computer that you primarily just use for your officiating? According to my accountant, that is a taxable deduction because you're using it primarily for that. There are all kinds of little things there that you have the potential for. So get to them early to find out what you can deduct. If you go to a camp, you go to a clinic, all of that is tax deductible from your expenses as well.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Appreciate you sharing. That's 100% correct.
So-
All right. So I already said this. Yeah.
One other thing too, and this is a thing that nobody tells you until you need to do it. At a certain point, you may start making enough money that you'll need to pay taxes quarterly on estimates. And that's the only way to avoid getting hit with a tax penalty. I'd love to tell you what the amount is. I don't know, but I can tell you that once I got hit with a tax penalty my first year, that became an issue. And now I have to set aside money every, 4 times a year to pay, with just assuming that I'm going to make that money back later in the year.
Yeah, Nick, that's a great point. And let me add that when I started my business 6 years ago, that first year, my CPA and I sat down and we knew predictable what my income was. So it was easy to plan. When it came to year 2, what we did is we looked back at year 1 and said, okay, this was year 1. Let's plan on year 2 paying taxes as if it was year 1. Well, the problem is I grew that year by 47%, and we did not take into effect that growth factor. So year 3, or right after year 2, I got a humongous bill not preparing for that growth. So this is where I was mentioning earlier, you have to plan ahead and understand, if you're going to have, this is your game fee and these are how many games that you're going to work, and you do have to pay those quarterly estimated taxes, make sure your CPA overestimates, because you definitely don't want a bill that you have to pay because you saved less than what you should have. I can tell you firsthand, that really hurts. It is not fun. It sucks. Anyway, okay. So a couple more helpful resources that I just want to share with you. There's some more workout apps. I know I mentioned Center earlier, and Nick shared one, but 8Fit is another really good workout app that I find to be extremely valuable. And these are the 3 that I use. 8Fit, number 2, Center, which I already mentioned, and number 3 is Shred. Shred is definitely FitRef. Yeah, Nick just shared his in the chat.
Not, just to be clear, it's one I use. It is not my app. If any of you have met me personally, I clearly am not a personal trainer.
Right. Oh, you could have fooled me. I thought you were a personal trainer. Number 4 is Stretch It, and I will just tell you firsthand that mobility and flexibility are just as important as strength training and working out. You have got to be mobile and flexible. The amount of impact and work that we do, I mean, if you literally just take the time that you're on the field from warm-ups to the end of the game, you're pushing 4.5 to 5 hours on that field. That is a long time standing up, adrenaline pumping. I don't know how many times you get off the field and you get in the locker room and you're like, whoa, and you just kind of unwind and you don't realize how much energy you expenditured. Well, your mobility will help you overcome any injuries or any issues that you may have after the game. So it's probably one of the biggest times that I spend for my physical well-being is stretching and mobility. It's, I mentioned I'm at the gym for 2.5 hours. Hour and a half is probably on flexibility, mobility, and hour is on strength training. And, I hardly really do cardio all that much because I do high intensity stuff anyway. But on the budget apps, here are 4 really good ones for you: YNAB, Empower, Pocket Guard, and Copilot. Most of them have the ability to keep track of what's coming in, what's going out, and your receipts. So those are 4 really good resources for you. Okay, that's going to be the resources. Moving on. So this came up the other night. I thought this was kind of cool. For my referees that are on the phone, you're going to know the answer to this because this was talked about at the referee clinic. But here's my question of the night to you all: what is a group of zebras called? If you're a referee and you know this, don't answer. But anybody else? Anybody want to take a guess at what a group of zebras is called without Googling it?
I know this only because it was brought up over the last couple of weekends.
Yeah. It's been brought up a lot. I love it. I think it's pretty cool. All right, go ahead. Was that you, Brian? Hello?
Yeah, I didn't know. I can answer if you like.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's called a dazzle.
That's right. Yeah. So let's just dazzle on the field by being professional, ready to be the best you can be. A little corny, but I love it. Anyway, thank you very much. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Seth. I really appreciate that. I appreciate your willingness to share with the group. So that's kind of a wrap on the meeting for tonight. I just wanted to, again, remind everybody about our website, which you all have access to via our via the emails and links and things like that. And, I appreciate everybody who's volunteered to sign up for presentations. We're pretty well covered into August, but we'll start thinking about our in-season things. So the plan for almost all these is Monday nights. I think we have 1 or 2 on a Tuesday. You'll get emails, calendar invitations, all that kind of stuff. So hope you enjoyed tonight. Thank you again to Seth Wasserman for presenting to the group. I hope you took something away from it. Look forward to seeing everybody back here on the 3rd of June with Billy D. Williams and coach and crew communication. So that's it for tonight. Thanks everybody for being here and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks. You too.